everybody. Welcome to the third episode on Podcasting 101 with Simona Nicole. I hope this series has been super helpful so far and that you're learning a lot of great tips and tricks in launching your podcast. Today, like mentioned in last week's episode, we are going to be talking about hosting sites. Yay! We're doing more of the little nitty-gritty details that are so important while you're launching your show. I very transparently and very candidly, I have notes at the bottom over here, right, like over here. So I'm going to be referencing them because I do want to make sure to bring you all of the information that you need. I don't want to miss anything. If you have any questions, please let me know. Put them in the comments. I will absolutely respond to all of them. You can send me a DM too if you're shy in the comments. No problem. I really wanted to talk about hosting sites because this is the biggest part that people miss when they're launching their podcast. I get messages from so many people saying like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm launching my podcast. I'm so ready. Like, this is so great. And then I'm like, oh, where are you hosting it? And they're like, what are you talking about? They're like, but I'm launching tomorrow. And I still have to figure out how to get it onto Apple Podcast. Okay. So hosting sites are so important. Because honestly, everything goes back to your hosting site. Your hosting site is like the vessel and like the space for the rest of your show. So we're gonna dive into how to pick your hosting site and how to upload your episodes. So again, I think that this is the biggest part that a lot of people overlook because if you're just starting out, like you don't know that you need a hosting site. So I think that it's so important to just like do your due diligence, take the time to research the different hosts. We're gonna go into a couple today, but I really think that your needs will depend on, like your hosting site will depend on your needs and depend on what you want to do with your site. But if you have any questions about hosting sites and specifics and things like, you like but you're not sure, you have a question about this but you're not sure, just send me a message and we can go through it. It's no problem at all, okay? So I really think that Libsyn is the best hosting site. That's the one that I use. And I really like Libsyn, and I've always really liked Libsyn. And a lot of people have a lot of different opinions. People are very protective over their hosting site, and people are very passionate about the site that they use, deservedly so, because it is their website, or is their podcast, right? So, there are tons of different reviews on tons of different platform hosts. But I really think that if you do a quick Google search, you'll be able to find what you're looking for. They are all very similar, just some things have different, like some of them have different features than others, and key things to be aware of. So pick your hosting site based on capability. What is it that you want to be able to pull? What kind of analytics do you need to be seeing every single week or every single day? How much reach, do you want to be able to see your reach? Do you want to be able to see your downloads? Do you want to be able to see your countries or where your show is being played? All of these things are so important and things that you really want to consider before purchasing your hosting site. It's not hard to move from one site to another, but I really think that it's easier to just get started on a hosting site where you've done the research and you just know that it's a good one and that it's going to be a good fit for you. There are some really great ones out there, but like I was saying, I really like Libsyn. Anchor is another really popular one, which is great. Anchor is really great too if you want to make quick money on your podcast, because you can actually add in ads into your podcast episode through Anchor. Whereas on Libsyn, you can't do that. You have to hold on, let me backtrack. The podcast hosting site will have sponsorship opportunities for your podcast, okay? So on Anchor, they have ones that you can pick and that you can put into your episode. And I believe it's paid out on the amount of downloads or each episode gets. On Libsyn, you can add in a sponsor ad into your show, no problem. But you can't do it through Libsyn's partners until you hit a specific amount of downloads, if that makes any sense. So if you have any questions about this, just let me know. I think that, it's really important to also highlight here, you do have the opportunity to use any of your own sponsors in any episode that you have. It's just some of the hosting sites have these benefits already built into them, which is great. I also think that it's just when you're thinking about your like your platform, wherever you're going to pick to host your website, to host your podcast, there's so many different like things to consider. And one of them is also cost. So like take a look at the cost of the platform that you're looking for and be ready to spend that amount every single month. So when I first started out with Libsyn, all I needed was just basic statistics and analytics. So I didn't pay for it at the beginning. And then I upgraded and I got like the next package up because I wanted to be able to see more statistics. I wanted to be able to see where my listeners were based, you know, how many people were downloading per day. Like I wanted to see all of that different stuff, right? So it depends on what your needs are from the beginning versus like where you want to grow to. So you always have that opportunity to upgrade. You always have that opportunity to see more, but there are hosting sites that will give you tons of analytics to begin with that you can absolutely work with. So it really comes down to preference. There are some sites that you can host on for free, but they're really limited in what you can see and what you can do. So again, just double check all of these different things for your own podcast, for your own hosting site. And if you have any questions, just let me know. The hosting site is how you're gonna get your RSS feed. This might all sound just like random lingo to you, so if it is, just again, send me a message and we will go through it. But your hosting site is how you're going to get your RSS feed. And it's how your show gets automatically distributed to Apple, to Spotify, to Google Play, to SoundCloud, to iHeartRadio, to Podplay, or all these different random places. It's through your RSS feed. So what happens is you just have to upload your show once to your podcast host site, and then it automatically pushes to all of these different platforms automatically as soon as you've uploaded it. So I find that this is so highly convenient. You don't have to spend time just going over and over and over again and like uploading to different places. It just does it all for you. It's very, very worth it. While you're setting up so let's say like, okay, so now you've picked your hosting site and like, this is also exciting. There's so much, so much stuff to do and everything is great. You're going to want to set up your hosting site so that when your podcast gets fed out, there's a cover image, like you have your cover art, you have a description of your show, you have all of your destinations set up. So destinations are like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, like all of those are all destinations, and they get set up on the back end. So you set all of that stuff up before you publish an episode. And I wanted to think if there's anything else that I wanted to say about that I hadn't written down. To be honest, it's pretty straightforward. Like it really depends on the hosting site that you choose. But to get sort of ahead of, like what you are, what's the word that I'm looking for? To get ahead of, the whole thing, you can create your description in advance for your show. And that's the description that's gonna populate on all of those destinations. So you think when you go to like Apple Podcast, you have Apple Podcasts, and then you can click on the podcast that you're searching and you can see their description. All of that stuff is fed through the back end, same as the cover image, so that you don't have to upload the cover image for your podcast every single time. It's just automatically there, and it automatically feeds from your RSS feed into the interwebs, which is amazing. So again, destinations. Hosting your podcast on a podcast hosting site allows you to disseminate all of your content automatically to the different platforms. It allows it to do it separately, and there are tons and tons and tons of instructions on how to do this online. But my biggest thing here would be as soon as you have your podcast site up, you have your date that you want to launch, you need to make sure that you're submitting your show to Apple Podcasts separately, because that was a learning thing for me when I first started, that you have to get that separately approved by Apple for them to host your show. So to consider, and it can take anywhere from like 2 days to like 2 weeks. So keep that in mind as well. And then I guess like as a last point, like ultimately, wherever you're hosting your podcast is going to be the central location of your show, right? It's where your RSS link lives. It's where you push your content out from. So make sure that you do your research. Make sure that you pick one that you really like. Make sure that the one that you pick is going to help you in the actual way that you need to be helped. and that will support you in all of the things that you need to do. So let me know if this episode was helpful, what you learned, what you want to learn more of, if you have any questions at all. If you're watching this on YouTube, because I am going to upload this to my YouTube channel, be sure to rate and review this episode. Leave it in the comments, subscribe to the show. And other than that, let me know your questions, but I will catch you on the next episode.